One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. We are back into the work week after just a delightful weekend. Maybe you were enjoying some of the spring football going on. More than likely, you've been enjoying the start of baseball season. Of course, we just had the Masters come and go. Congratulations to Rory on his second green jacket. But Trey, this weekend felt like the ultimate weekend to be a college student, right? So many things that you can just stack, activities that you can just go to one after the other. And you are down in Bryan College Station, where they had a couple of baseball games of heated nature go on, and you had a hilarious text exchange with another former student that I knew we had to start the show off as we kind of carry forward the spirit of college athletics. This just was the perfect way to start.
Yeah, first of all, it's family weekend in Bryan College Station. You're absolutely right. There are just a million different events. Chili Fest, if you partake in that, got canceled on Saturday.
I was going to say, did anybody partake in that?
Which was a new one. Friday night was apparently fun, but Friday night where I was at Olson Field at Bluebell Park, where It was just an absolutely insane atmosphere for Jim Schlosnagel's return. What did I call it last week, Garrett? A homecoming? And you said, yeah, that's probably not the right word for that.
I don't know if homecoming is the right word to use.
His first appearance back in College Station since the events of summer 2024. And it was insane. And essentially, the long story short, they're two great wins by the Aggies on Friday and Saturday. They tried to get game 3 in on Sunday, and it was just a monsoon all day. So they announced on Twitter that they're going to try to get first pitch at 9:30 p.m. and it's just free admission. Come one, come all. Gates are open. Discounted
Original
beer.
First pitch was supposed to be at 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Yeah. And there were some people that stayed in the stands all day long. I would say that is somewhere between dedication and needing multiple hobbies to get you through a Sunday.
Sicko behavior.
It's absolute sicko behavior. We respect that. But I texted good friend of the show, listener of the show, that is a second-time college student. He was in the Army for a bit, came back, is now finishing his degree at A&M this summer. And I said, hey, man, you're only in college once. Are you going to experience Olson Field after midnight? And he said, listen, I used to do that, and it made me not just a one-time college student, but a two-time college student, and gave me a free ticket across the ocean via the Army. So, no, I am not going to do that. But you're absolutely right. It was a great weekend to be a college student. And even if you didn't want to stay out past midnight, that was a good call. They never got the game in. So it ultimately was a good call by him.
Listen, he went pro in something other than sports
for a little bit. Yeah.
Whomst among us hasn't been there. No, but shout out to all of our men and women who are serving, protecting our great nation. Truly felt like the spirit of this weekend. And guys, as we try and get back into college football mode, there's, like I said, spring games going on. Colorado is being punked for how small all of their players looked. I don't know if you guys have seen the side by sides. What the first year that Prime was there was 2023, is that right? And is a sellout for the spring game. Oh, the program's back. It's upward trajectory. The years of 2 and 10 are behind us. And then this year, once again, the spring game, just nobody in attendance. Colorado players getting heckled on Twitter for looking small. I mean, it was a lot going on.
The JV team, right? Are they playing the varsity this weekend? Or
man, they didn't looked like it. Florida was in action. I know Texas A&M is getting ready to play. So all of that to say, rosters are being set, which is exciting. We're looking forward to our preview content per usual. But with that, there's a couple of big developments that have happened in college sports. We're going to play Fact or Fiction. That's the main thrust of this episode. I've got 4 questions for you guys. I'm excited to get your take and hear you guys weigh in on that. But Trey, first of all, you guys did not get a chance to talk President Trump and the executive order that hit the news late last week. So I'll turn it over to you. We're trying to save college football, I guess. A lot of different things have been put forth by various congressmen, senators, a lot of discourse on Twitter. So President Trump puts forth an executive order, but what did he actually do? I think that was what we were trying to dig into.
Well, what he's trying to do is basically just a dream scenario for somebody that wants to somewhat return to normalcy in college football. And, we're not a political show, so we won't get into the ins and outs of what an executive order can and can't do. We'll leave actual smart people to do that. But essentially, this executive order wants to give the NCAA some juice back. They want to empower the NCAA to actually enforce some of the rules. And if you've been following this stuff going back to about 2021, it's just been L after L after L in the courtroom for the NCAA. But this executive order, it really wants to go after fraudulent NIL schemes, as they call it, which are just above fair market value. It wants to kind of try to use the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. I'll save everybody the trip back to APUSH and AP government for that one. But essentially saying that because different states have different laws about who can earn what money, that's just a bad situation and violates the constitutional Commerce Clause. So trying to get rid of that and invalidate all these competing state laws. And it's, I think, smartly under the, I don't want to say guise, but just the banner of protecting women's and Olympic sports, right? I think that's something that a lot of people can get behind, even if you don't care as much about the NIL or getting in the weeds of the business of college football. You can see the writing on the wall for a lot of these Olympic and women's sports where, hey, if you're not one of the sports on a campus that revenue sharing is going to fund or a donor is going to fund all the NIL of, you might get left behind and you might get just not treated like a first-class citizen on your own campus. So I think that is, in a perfect world, we do want to protect those and we want to make sure that we are funding entire athletic departments as equally as we can and doing all that. But guys, in my opinion, it's really good intentioned, but the whole thing is just, hey, here's an executive order. We're going to throw it in on August 1st. It's going to go into effect. And even in the text of the executive order, it's like basically begging Congress to please enact this with legislation. And to that, I would say good luck. If you follow politics at all, you know how slow Congress can be. And yeah, I think, it's a good intentioned executive order. I think that a lot of people would read through it and agree with a lot of the tenets, but if we're talking about it holding up in court, I think, Mitch, you have a better chance at starting the slot for A&M this fall. I really don't think it has a good chance.
Listen, I'm just just a couple of training sessions away from being ready to go. So Coach Elko,
got some wheels, man, he can fly.
If you need a 5'8" white boy playing on the inside, hit your boy up. No, I think I had a couple of things that just leapt to mind. Number one being, why are we trying to save the NCAA? It feels like it would be more profitable to just let the house burn down and start over with a new organization, right? I mean, this truly feels like we're trying to rebuild the house of cards, put the toothpaste in the tube, throw in your analogy here. And when the NCAA doesn't actually know who they are and what they do to begin with, it's really hard for me to get on board and say, yeah, this is actually going to save college football. We all would give hearty thumbs up to most of the things that it says in there, but it does feel like too little too late. And given, the log jam that it now faces on Capitol Hill, plus the other fact is there's a lot of other things I'd rather them be talking about than how many scholarships need to go where right now. There's a couple of things that I would like them to get right with wars and inflation first, before we talk about which sports are going to be scholarship funded and which ones aren't. But I don't know. That's just me, weighing in the comments if you think differently. But yeah, I think ultimately it just feels like we're trying to save a broken system, whereas we're already moving towards creating a new league, new frontier, new whatever. I'd rather just start there and kind of rebuild from the ground up, if that makes sense.
I can't believe this isn't top of mind for you, Mitch. I thought you were a college sports fan. Come on, man. No,
with
honestly,
bills to pay.
I think you have a good point. I think the problem is, like, this is still trying to approach it from an NCAA standpoint, and I think we just have to acknowledge that that's over, right? Like, it's that. Yeah. The last thing the NCAA really needs to fix their problems is like some shaky legal standing in terms of what they can and can't do. That's already kind of where they are at this point anyways. We don't need to throw more words in a book for things that they can't enforce anyways. And so, yeah, I think what Trey said, it's well-intentioned, right? I think it's, we're trying to do something to fix what is very clearly a problem. I still think that we can let this blow over. Like, I know that a lot of people are going to say like, oh, this is just an infinite problem, but I think you're already starting to see at a lot of schools, people are starting to back off a little bit and say like, yeah, I'm not going to pay, $20 million, $30 million just so my football team can go 7-5 or whatever it is. Like, you're starting to see it back off a little bit. And so again, I don't think we're, through the storm at this point when it comes to NIL and everything else, but I think we're not too far off from this starting to fix itself a little bit. And someone's going to come up with a good solution. I don't know that I would choose the federal government to be that entity that comes up with a good solution to fix the problem. So it's call me skeptical or cynical. I just don't necessarily think that that's the body that will get it done for college football or for any of the other college athletics.
Trey, I did a coaching carousel, like live ticker basically on our Substack. When this hits in August and every university in the continental United States starts filing injunctions against this, would you like to commit right now to having a live scroll, maybe live tweeting that?
No, I would not. You can go to someone else for that because it sounds disgusting.
CNN.com, FoxNews.com, anywhere else.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here just really quickly. I know we want to move on to the main focus of the show, but let's just assume that in a perfect world, we could get Congress to actually agree on this. I know that's asking a lot. Like, again, we don't want to get political on our show, but you don't have to be any side of the aisle to know that it's going to be almost impossible to get that body to agree on almost anything. But let's just say in a perfect world, there's enough concessions thrown out, whatever it takes to get this through Congress. That would, in theory, be a step in the right direction, right? Because I know, regardless of if it's helping the NCAA, like, that's about the only thing that could put the toothpaste back in the tube and gives us some sense of what quote unquote normalcy from like 10 years ago.
Well, yes, I think the biggest roadblock, hurdle, whatever that you immediately run into is how is the NCAA enforcing it, right? I mean, the transfer rule, sure, but what happens if an institution doesn't really want to play ball? What happens if they get caught cutting a corner? What happens with Title IX? Like, there's so many loose threads from that point that I think you could pull on. And, at the very least, you're going to have, institutions saying, hey, whiplash, like it was the Wild West, and now you've, thrown these ironclad guardrails on it. Like, it's going to take time. We need this grandfather and whatever. And I don't know, man. It's hard for me to imagine that in actuality, in theory, yes, we could absolutely, get something that resembles hard and fast rules. But in actuality, so many universities have been making it up since 2021 when this all became legal. I don't know if the NCAA ever fully claws back on top of the mountain.
Yeah, and Trey, you said it, but that is kind of the point too, is that they will not come together and come to a mutual agreement on this. It'd be nice if like unicorns and fairies existed and then they could all have a tea party together. Like, that'd be cool too. But as long as we're talking about stuff that'll never happen, right? That's kind of where we are, unfortunately, at this stage. Is it's just, even if this was the case where like the federal government's the correct tool to fix this, and they can actually give the NCAA some power back, and somehow make the NCAA competent again, that still just requires like agreement, and that's just not going to happen.
Well, watch this space. Much more to come on this. No, we're not going to be live tweeting updates from C-SPAN 3, but we'll hit the highlights. I think as those become available. At 3 Tech Pod is where you can find all of your political news, of course, along with college football talk as well. Guys, speaking of what will or might not happen, let's get into the entree for this evening. Fact or Fiction Spring 2026 edition. I've got 4 main questions that I really immediately had spring to mind. I mean, it was kind of a bunch of different voices popping up as soon as I came up with this idea. Hey, what do I want to hear both sides of, hear a debate on? These 4 topics were pretty quick towards the top of the list. And so we'll hit, I think, the major conferences. And, if you want us to do more of these, please let us know in the comments, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you interact with our college football content. I'd love to have your input as well. But the first Fact or Fiction question that I have for you guys: Georgia will win 3 straight SEC titles in 2026. Just to set the stage for you, Kirby Smart, obviously one of the greatest coaches to ever do it, is currently doing it. In a top 30 scoring offense last year, they return at least some of their major pieces there. They were 35th in rushing last year, which was obviously the biggest factor in them really returning to full form, right? They couldn't run the ball 2 years ago. Last year, it was like, oh, hey, all of a sudden the ground game exists again. Gunnar Stockton, London Humphreys, Nate Frazier amongst the skill players back. They are a little bit younger along the offensive line. That'll be a storyline that we watch, I think, for a lot of teams across the country. It feels very centered in the SEC, but then again, we root for a team in the SEC. So, more on this space as it develops. And they have a ton of returning starters on defense as well. They've got one of my favorite transfers out of the portal in Jamarly Riddle, who comes over from East Carolina at safety. So with all of that, Garrett, let's start with you. Fact or Fiction, Georgia makes it 3 straight in the SEC.
I really hate betting on one team against the field, especially as we sit here and it's not even tax day yet. Like we haven't quite made it through April. But I think this is fact, right? I think that Georgia's probably right now, if I had to bet Georgia versus the field, I think I'm okay betting Georgia right now. And a couple reasons why. I think they're just better than the rest of the league. A lot of the maybe top contenders also have kind of tricky schedules, right? You look at, like a Texas and Alabama, some of those teams, not necessarily easiest schedules for some of those teams. And Georgia's schedule, I think, is a lot more manageable. They got 4 brand new head coaches, not brand new to head coaching, but new coaches at their schools, and anywhere from 5 to 7 new quarterbacks breaking into different systems. And so I know obviously at some point in time through the year, it's not like they're a brand new quarterback, but this is still experience that they don't have. And having a quarterback who is in year 1 in your system, or if he's in year 1 at a new competition level, right? If he's making a jump from like a lower, difficulty conference or something like that. I think that still has to matter, especially when you consider the stability of Gunnar Stockton and what they have on their roster, what they have as a program. I do think Gunnar takes a big step forward. I'm a big believer in him. I know that it's not necessarily like shocking. I think the Georgia quarterback's pretty good, but we've seen what they've been able to do at Georgia with just like average quarterback play. I mean, they won a couple of championships with not necessarily like elite quarterback play. And Gunnar even has had them in the playoff and performing extremely well with kind of average play. But we've seen moments where he's jumped up and really elevated his game. If he can make that a more consistent thing, if he can be better more consistently this year, which is always the step that you're waiting for that younger quarterback to take, right? You're always waiting for him to say, okay, we've seen you flash. Can we keep it bright, right? Can we keep it good for the whole year? If he can do that, Dogs might be unstoppable this year, because I just think that that's the kind of level they can play at when they have a quarterback at that level. They've already proven it. They've won 2 in a row with, kind of, again, average-ish quarterback play. Why not 3 in a row if Gunnar gets a little better?
I know I'm supposed to take, or not supposed to, but it's more interesting listening if I take the opposite approach here. But I'm gonna go fact also. I'm if you're making me pick somebody in April, I'm gonna pick Georgia because look, they got extremely unlucky in their 2 losses this year, right? And they're a bad 4th down decision away from coming back and beating Alabama. They got unlucky, I would say, in the second half and just kind of got Trinidad chambliss in the 4th quarter of that Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss. And hey, if they beat Ole Miss, really going into the playoff, there was not a team in the entire country outside of Bloomington, Indiana, playing better than the Georgia Bulldogs. And they were my pick to win the national championship going into the playoff last year. And, that might not have worked out. I think Indiana was obviously a wagon. If they would have run into it, I would have loved to see that game. But no one in the country right now, to me, and definitely not in the SEC, has this year-over-year stability that Georgia has under Kirby Smart, right? Like for the past 2 years, they've been fighting and clawing against all odds to get to 10-2 and 11-1 against difficult schedules, bad quarterback play, like you said, Garrett, with Carson Beck's last year there, no running game, like you mentioned, Mitch, in 24, and then 25, a young team that was figuring out on defense for half the year, and then all of a sudden it clicked, and Kirby Smart looks like a freaking genius once again. So they had an older team this year. They are going to be now one of the most experienced teams in the SEC. And you guys have both touched on it, but the schedule takes a big step down compared to the last couple of years. Who really scares you on it, honestly? Like, yes, I think they go to Tuscaloosa and go to Oxford. Alabama is not the Alabama that it has been the last few years. Newsflash. Ole Miss is a new coach, a new full-time coach. They host Oklahoma as well. That's what Garrett and I touched on last week of how kind of up in the air Oklahoma is this year. So I think Georgia, if you have to put money on somebody, they have a lot going in their favor. Now, what I will say, what could bite them this year, is Kirby Smart going to be the one coach that has not fully bought into the portal that it actually works out for? Because they are 14th in the SEC out of 16 teams in the portal rankings this year. And so I don't know, like, he's betting on his dudes and he's betting on the guys in that building. Yes, he's not going full Dabo and not taking any transfers. He's patching a few holes where he needs to, but he's certainly not going all in like most of the other contenders in the conference are.
Yeah, we'll talk about wide receiver cores with another team on this Fact or Fiction list. I wonder if Georgia has the giddy up out wide to truly be elite on the offensive side. We'll see. I mean, London Humphreys is great. They always get outstanding production from the tight end position, but outside of that, who's going to be that next guy that steps up and makes a big time impact, who makes you fear them no matter where they are on the field? That's a big question for me. The other thing I'll point to, two interesting notes. One, I had no idea that the cocktail party against Florida was now in Atlanta this year. What is the Invesco QQQ
party? Yeah, get
Atlanta
its name right.
Gridiron Classic, dude, puts on QQQ for that. That's just disrespectful.
They are going all in on Atlanta sports. I was watching a Georgia Tech baseball game the other night, and they're front and center behind home
disgusting.
Plate. But they're renovating whatever the stadium in Jacksonville is called, TIAA Bank, I think is.
But I thought Jacksonville was playing all home games. Where are they playing their home games?
I think they're playing in Orlando now. Like, I think they're at Camping World or whatever it is down there. So they're
okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh,
so that could be interesting. But yeah, I was gonna say, Trey, you had an interesting point. Just kind of about the whole, like, is he going to be able to succeed without like the portal? Because it's funny, if you're going to bet on any roster, I'd probably bet on Georgia, right? Like, there's a lot of good rosters out there. Georgia's got one of the best rosters you got, but I mean, you're absolutely right that, like, how can you think in today's day and age that you can just bet on that? It's kind of like what you're saying. It's like the Dabo on steroids thing, and obviously it's harder to do because you're playing in the SEC, for better or worse. Like, we'll talk about the ACC in a second, but it's not exactly a juggernaut of a conference. SEC is a lot harder to win. The thing I think that helps his case for this is their schedule's a little lighter, but it's also spread out. Like, there's not like a really tough 2 or 3 game stretch for Georgia on this one. So I think if you're looking at Georgia, you're thinking, like, can they string some stuff together? Can they maybe focus a little bit on one spot? Like, Do you think that Oklahoma's a tough game? Maybe. Well, what do they have right before that? Well, it's Arkansas, and then you follow with Vanderbilt. And so it's like, okay, well, depends on what you think about Vanderbilt this year. Then you get Alabama, but then it's back to Auburn. So it's like, okay, I know that Auburn's a big deal. That's a bigger, kind of rivalry game, not the same quality of opponent necessarily. And then you get a bye week before that Florida game. And then it just, there's a lot of different kind of gaps in this schedule where they can get a little bit of momentum, weather a storm, even if they're not quite there, right? Even if the roster's not quite there or something, that they can still weather. And then the close is easy. If you think, Ole Miss is, a little bit tough maybe, but Missouri at South Carolina and then Georgia Tech, who's pretty depleted at this. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's a pretty easy close for them.
Listen, the Shane Beamer apologists will spin the fact that Cocktober is a total sham, but they're actually decent in November. So
I want a South Carolina apologist to approach me in public and have that conversation with me, because I have no idea who you are as a person if you still think that South Carolina is like humming as a program.
There are dozens of them, and they are just weeks away from emerging from their hibernation.
Yes.
Oh, I can hear them. Here they come.
They come out every single year, no matter how good or bad they were the past season. There's the hope. All right, well, weigh in where you have the Georgia Bulldogs finishing. Obviously, it's bright and early in the springtime, but these are obviously key conversations to have as we get ready to do our preview season, as we're digging into these programs. The SEC is a gauntlet. No matter how you view them, juxtaposed to the Big Ten, Georgia got some scheduling favors, right? And it feels like if there's any program in the SEC right now built to take advantage of those, it's probably between the hedges. So would love to know where you stand on the Georgia Bulldogs. Guys, let's move to the second fact or fiction question for you. And Trey, we'll start with you. Fact or fiction, Miami began a dynasty run in the ACC last year.
I'm going fact. It's been a long time coming, but I think you saw with the playoff run and kind of the back half of that schedule, right after their backs are up against the wall, that second loss against SMU, they really turned a corner under Mario Cristobal and really played at a level of consistency and just taking care of business that we haven't seen, quite honestly, in his tenure down in South Beach. So he finally got something to click. He really started avoiding those characteristic mess ups that we've just become known for at this point. And I am of the opinion that I don't think that was just a magical month. I think that with the talent that he has, and really more importantly, just the lack of competent competition in the conference, right? I think that there's no one really standing in their way right now. So it's almost going to be a Miami dynasty by default. Now, the Miami opponents will say, hey, it hasn't necessarily been the big contenders that have been Miami's problem over the last few years. And that is totally fair. They very well could stub their toe once or twice where they shouldn't going into this year and going forward. But the good news for them now is the ACC has fixed their tiebreaker rules. So I really don't see anyone else going through not gauntlet's a bad word for the ACC, but the conference schedule of the ACC unscathed or with one loss. There's just not that complete team right now in the ACC. And there's certainly not two of them outside of Miami. So I think tiebreakers, college football playoff rankings, they're all going to work in Miami's favor. So now that all they have to do is just get into the ACC title game and win that one game, I think that things are really looking up for Miami.
Which, to be fair, getting into the ACC title game and winning it is still a box that is unchecked by Mario Cristobal to this point.
Under these new tiebreaker rules, they would have been in last year, and they would have destroyed Duke or Virginia or whoever it was that was up there with them.
I'll just hang the banner then. Why don't we? No, I'm going on the fiction side of this one, and I know that I'm probably just going to get a bunch of Miami hate for this, but I don't really care. Look, if we're talking specifically about Miami beginning a dynasty of ACC dominance, then okay, sure, I guess that's
not how exactly I took the question, for the record.
Right. And if that's what we're saying, then okay, maybe they win by default because there's just nobody else in the conference. And even if you do stub your toe and find a way to lose to Wake Forest because, you forget how to play football for a week, or throw a bunch of picks in Dallas, or forget how to kneel the ball against Georgia Tech or something, if all of those things just don't matter in the grand scheme of a conference because the rest of the conference can't pull its weight. Okay, maybe they just start that dynasty. But here's where I kind of think that it fails. So I don't think they have what it takes to begin winning championships. And I'm sure that if they win it this year, this gets clipped and we're laughing. But I just don't think that they have what it takes to compete at the national level. We talked about it a little bit last week. I'm not necessarily on the Darian Mensah train. I think he's a good quarterback, but I don't think he improves over what they've had with, Cam Ward, Carson Beck, like at that level quarterback play. I just don't think he improves the product that much. They lost a bunch off of their defense. They only returned 51% of their defensive production, according to Conley. So, like, if we're looking at, do I expect them to be able to have that defense hold as much water as it did? I don't really. The offensive line has a bunch of questions for me in terms of what it brings back, because there were times that I think they just leaned heavy on that offensive line. And look, I mean, if they're going to compete at the ACC, they have to stay up, I think. And if they start to show that maybe they can't quite hack it when they get out there against the big guys, I think that stops some of that higher level talent from showing up in Miami, and you start to see them fall off a little bit too. So it's going to take a run of dominance to do that. I think they're going to have to keep winning games in the playoff and keep staying relevant nationally in order to keep that high-end talent coming to Miami. Problem for them this year specifically is they have at Clemson and at Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame's not a conference game for them, but that's 2 road games that are really tough. And I think if that's your 10-2 and your other notable win is, and I'm looking up and down the schedule, but your notable win is Pitt,
probably Virginia Tech. If the Hokies are good this year,
right? Yeah, like that's your star win if you can't figure it out at Clemson or at Notre Dame, which 2 tough places to play. Like you can't mess around in those stadiums. And so,
with the new rules, they would just need to win the ACC title game, and they'd be 7 or 8-1 in the ACC. In that.
Fair enough, and I just don't think that it puts them in a good enough position to win long term in like a playoff run. I don't think that it puts them in a position to do that. And again, like if you lose at Clemson, and let's say that maybe Clemson is still good this year, and there's a tiebreaker scenario and you find your way out because you mess around with somebody else, because let's be real, like I don't think that I can convince myself out of the fact that Cristobal's going to find a way to stub his toe. Like they came in second this year. They finished runner up this year, and they still threw a bunch of picks in Dallas and lost to SMU and like couldn't figure it out against Louisville. And like, again, those aren't like terrible teams, but those are teams that Miami should have beaten, and Miami had no business losing either of those games. So looking up and down this schedule, I say, oh, Pitt, even though it's at home, yeah, sure, sign me up. Pitt's a loss. Like, just find the losses on the schedule for Miami somehow. Does Duke want revenge for losing their quarterback? Is Virginia Tech suddenly better and they're a little bit hopped up and ready to go? Like, there's a lot of scenarios where I think they could come out a little bit flat, because I still just don't believe that Cristobal doesn't have that in him somewhere. He did well on the playoff run. You're totally right. I'm not going to try to debate that for a second. He also lost a couple stupid games last season, which until he shows he's not doing that, I just can't buy them as like a permanent fixture at the top of the ACC.
I just think that Cristobal's gonna be stupid. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. Like, they will stub their toe at some point, most likely, but are you saying that they won't be out-stupided by the other 16 members of that conference?
It's possible. Because I think the thing that's possibly the case for the ACC is, like, I think there's a couple teams that are like a little bit better now, and like that may not show up this year, right? Like, it may not, like James Franklin may not win the ACC this year. Okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to put in that call here. Again, we're not even at tax day. But like, you could convince me that Virginia Tech gets to a certain level over the next couple seasons that they're constantly competing and going 10-2 every year. Like, you could convince me that's the case for them, because he has shown, again, like we complained about it a little bit last week when we were talking about it.
Franklin can go 10-2 if nothing else.
That's what he can do. Like, he can do it all but the big game. So, like, you know, is that the problem with Miami? Does he have that much of an issue with the big game that he can't win against Miami when they're both, you know, undefeated going into that matchup? Or, you know, is it Clemson finds a way to just keep being at the top somehow because they're Clemson? Or is it, you know, are they completely done, or are they going to find their way back to competing? Or, you know, there's just a lot of scenarios where I think that you could find another ACC team on a given year that'll get a weird tiebreaker just because.
I think so. Yeah, I think the argument that Cristobal is his own worst enemy, I can agree with. From where we sit right now, like, yes, Miami lost a ton on the defensive side, but I do think they did everything in their power to refill the trough, right? I mean, the offense is going to be loaded with star power. Now, the Miami team that was loaded with star power 2 years ago with Cam Ward slung the ball all over the yard, put up all the points, didn't have a defense for crap, right? Didn't do anything nationally.
You're right about that.
Obviously, the defense is going to be should be better this next year. They do have to find some new pass rush. Damian Wilson, the second, my guy, comes over from Mizzou. I'm sure he'll lead that pass rushing charge. They've got a couple of new pieces to plug in along the offensive line. They've got new wide receivers to join. Who the talented freshman that they had last year, whose name is escaping me right now. You guys know who he is at home.
Tony.
Yes, Malachi Tony. Thank you. So, yes, I look at the roster and I go, okay, if I am building a team, rebuilding a team through the portal, check, right? Miami has done everything right so far. You look at the schedule. I'm not scared of Clemson right now. Sorry, Will. Clemson they're going to have to show me. It's like the stock market, right? Like we had kind of a plateau that was acting as support. Now we've gone below that, so it becomes resistance. I'm going to need to see Clemson, break through that resistance and put in some higher highs before I'm going to be willing to invest in the Tigers again. So I do think outside of Notre Dame, nobody scares me, right? I mean, Miami has all of their toughest games at home, aside from that Clemson game, aside from the Notre Dame game. They should take care of business. The beautiful part of this question, the whole reason why I think it's not just an automatic yes, fact. Like if you were picking one side of this, it's fact, is Cristobal just has that trap door in him, right? And it doesn't matter how talented the team is, how good his coordinators are. They're going to lose at home on a Friday night to Louisville. They're going to lose on the road in a sleepy 11 a.m. game to SMU, turning the ball over a bunch of times. Like that is, if there was a reason to not buy into Miami, it's that. It's that they are wonderfully unpredictable.
Well, and again, this might just be part of the question, but like when I think dynasty, I think like minimum 5 years. And maybe that's wrong. Like maybe that's not what it is, but I'm thinking okay, minimum 5 years. Is Miami going to win the ACC 3-4 times? Right, that's what feels like a dynasty to me.
History says no. To your point,
I just don't want. History says, have they won it yet?
Yeah.
That have they won the ACC? Like that's just gonna like they had a really good year last year. Don't get me wrong. There's also a part of me that sits there and I'm like, if it wasn't windy in College Station, do they still come out with a dub? If it wasn't,
if Georgia makes more field goals if it wasn't windy, to be fair.
No, right. I'm just saying like there's a lot of like ifs for them where I just wonder like, okay, like there were a lot of things that went, I think, in the positive direction for them. But again, they didn't have to play Georgia. They got Ole Miss, who I thought was maybe the worst team in that situation. Again, you have to play the games. Like I get it, but I think Georgia's a better matchup against Miami last year. And so I wonder if that goes their way. There's a lot to what Miami is that I just wonder about saying like, okay, you did it once. That's nice. I really want to pump the brakes on dynasty, right? And for any of the Miami fans that are saying that we're back or it's time for Miami to run the whole thing, I'm like, great, show me again. Maybe I'll start to believe you. I need to see it more than one time. Again, we're not even 5 years removed from we didn't kneel it and then Georgia Tech won a football game. Like you're going to have to get a little bit of distance from that and put up an ACC title one time before I'll say that you can make a dynasty run as a team or as a program.
If Miami doesn't make the ACC game this year, are we talking about Mario Cristobal potentially on the hot seat?
I mean, if he makes another national title run in the playoff, then no.
But yeah, I think if he gets the berth, then probably not. But again, like if he's missing the ACC title game, to me that says 9-3 probably.
Yeah, well,
and no signature wins.
Yeah, 9-3 or 10-2, and somehow losing a tiebreaker, right? But like heading into Selection Sunday, we don't know that Miami's in. Maybe we think they're in at 10-2.
Right.
I think there's discourse on Twitter that maybe maybe just rode some electric playmakers and a really good defense last year, right?
There's probably more a conversation on the portal QB evaluation or the defensive
which is really the big
evaluation
thing, because you can't. I don't think you can. And this is maybe like, I might just be dumb here, but I don't think you can just rotate quarterbacks in the portal every year and maintain a consistent level of success. Like, you have to develop somebody at some point. I get that, like, sometimes you need a stopgap. Maybe you got a bunch of freshmen, they're not quite ready. Maybe you just need to go compete and the guy from the portal wins it. But I just don't think that you can say, like, all right, who's the next hot shot? Give him, $10 million, get down here. Like, whatever it is that Miami's doing. I just don't think that you can do that every year and expect to keep winning.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of teams that touches. Indiana, Oregon, come to mind, right? But Miami, no doubt, has no interest in recruiting and developing a high school quarterback. That is certainly a fact. All right, well, let's go from the ACC. Let's go up to the Big Ten, shall we? I just saw today the Big Ten is schlepping Big Ten trifecta shirts. If you're a fan of the conference, which they've made fun of the SEC for how many years at this point, you're buying that. I think you need to look in the mirror. But let's talk a possible Big Ten contender. Let's talk about Kyle Whittingham, fact or fiction. Kyle Whittingham in Michigan make the Big Ten title game in year one. Trey, let's start with you.
Oh, that's an easy fiction for me. I love Kyle Whittingham. Let me just start with that. But I'll go a little further to say we might even be amazed at what Jim Harbaugh accomplished, even more so when the Whittingham era is over. And whenever that may be. I'm not saying that it's only going to last 1 year or anything crazy like that, but I think Kyle Whittingham is going to stabilize this program. I think he's going to eventually have them playing really good ball and competing for a college football playoff spot. But man, this roster has a lot of holes this year. I really don't think it's a top 5 in the Big Ten roster. Just looking at it on paper, again, like Garrett said earlier in the episode, we're not even a tax day yet. We could have time for these opinions to change over the summer as we dive deeper. But as I just gloss over in the spring, I'm not seeing a top 5 roster in the Big Ten. So for me to make that jump and say, yeah, they're going to play for a Big Ten title in year one under Whittingham, I really just don't see it, man. I think he's going to stabilize that program. I think he's going to eventually have them playing good ball. I don't see them as a national title contender consistently under Kyle Whittingham. Guys, we got to think back, like Jim Harbaugh was the only guy this century to have Michigan and that brand playing at the level that they were. There were a lot of other guys before Jim Harbaugh. There was Sharon Moore right after it, obviously. That had some off-the-field stuff that was maybe a distraction. But, yeah, many men have tried, and only Jim Harbaugh has been able to succeed. And they were ready to run him off after 2020, like right before the actual good run started. So I think that, if you're looking at just the recent track record of Michigan and everything, how great Kyle Whittingham is, he's amazing at Utah, but this is a guy that's probably over 60 years old at this point. I don't know his exact age, but he's over 60, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And he's only ever done it in Salt Lake City. He's never had a head coaching job and had, that high level success outside of Utah. I just got to see that before I fully buy in.
I mean, Utah connection aside, and he's 66, by the way. Doesn't this feel like Michigan's version of Urban Meyer to a lesser extent, right? Like, older coach, was kind of retired. I know he doesn't have a national championship at Florida.
You talking about Urban Meyer at the Jacksonville Jaguars, or like?
No. When he came to Ohio State, like he was. We thought he was retired. We thought he was done.
No, nowhere near. Urban was so young, and he was relatively recently at the highest level of the sport. And sure. Urban had gotten Utah to a Sugar Bowl in an undefeated season.
I'm actually curious how old he was when he took that job, because I had thought he was older than he was too. I guess maybe.
He wasn't. I don't think he was quite in his 60s yet, but he was battling health issues, right? So I mean, like he
allegedly
he had maybe something to do with his divorce. I don't know. The details are fuzzy. I feel like, I mean, now listen, anything is more stable.
Urban Meyer is currently 61 years old, just for y'all's reference.
Wow, he has aged I'm gonna stop that sentence. He is aged. That's factual.
He has aged.
Don't come after me in the comments.
The best have.
Anything is more stable than obviously what Michigan just got done going through, right? And so to have the good old days be coaches paying for cheeseburgers, yeah, I think Michigan would probably sign up for some return to that. Now, I will say, and Michigan fans are still high on the basketball national championship, of course. That's hot in the streets right now. I would also say this is fiction, but the reason why I even put this forth, right? If you're a Michigan fan that you've tuned into this video, you haven't clicked out of it yet, here's why I even asked the question. They get the majority of their schedule, the main games they need to win. Oklahoma, Iowa, Penn State, Indiana, Michigan State, all at home, right? Michigan should defend home field, right? I mean, that should be a standard that they have every single year. So their biggest games for the front, like 75% of the season, at home. Now, they do have a tough close. They have to go to Oregon. They have to go to Ohio State, but they won the last time they were in the shoe. So there is a world in which the way the schedule is laid out, Michigan's contending for a Big Ten title. If Bryce Underwood can throw the ball, and my goodness, it won't be hard to improve on what they did last year. But if he can throw the ball, he's got freak athletes out wide. Andrew Marsh is a local kid from Texas. Couldn't believe he left the state to go play for Michigan. Jamie French, 5-star, all-world talent, leaves the University of Texas for playing time. He's up at Michigan. So they've got some young talent that are ready to make their names known for the Wolverines. Now, you're going to need the running game to really assert itself this year, right? I mean, that is what has been the backbone for Michigan these last several years. Not exactly outstanding quarterback play, but they've been tough. They've been physical. They've moved the lines of scrimmage, and they've had NFL running backs in the backfield. Jordan Marshall might be that next guy. He's young. He might be that next guy. Certainly flashed at times last year, right? Impressive games on tape. But then when Savion Hitter, who I believe is a 5-star, one of the top running backs in the class last year, is your number 2, I do wonder if the stable might be a little thin. If it's not quite ready for the grind that they're going to need to have if they're going to run to a championship. We'll see. They've got the talent to do it. Can they execute? Your guess is as good as mine. And I'll say this, on the defensive side, they've got some veterans back in the secondary. Pass rush should be much better. John Henry Daly comes over. I think they were like 54th or something like that. They were supremely average at getting to the quarterback. One of the leaders in sacks last year comes over from Utah, follows Whittingham to Ann Arbor. So all of that to say, there are some reasons to like the Michigan Wolverines. Now, do you believe that they get over on the likes of the Indianas and the Ohio States and the Oregons? Probably not the betting favorite, but I think there's a conversation to be had.
Well, if any Michigan fans have made it, come here. It's going to be okay. I'll take care of you now, okay? Under the shadow of my wings shall I protect y'all from these haters over here, clearly bought and paid for by the Ohio media. No,
You just made the case for them. What?
Nah. I guess look, and I'm also gonna say fiction on this one, so let's just be real. But I think this is more like historical fiction, where like it could look real, but like out of context, and like once you put it back in context, like, oh, that didn't really happen. But like I think you can legitimately make the case that Michigan will be a very good football team this year. And I don't think it's that hard to make that case. I mean, if you look at what Kyle Whittingham was able to do at Utah, even as recently as a few years back when he had a healthy quarterback who wasn't just absolute cheeks, they were winning back-to-back Pac championships. Like, that's not nothing, right? And those over Oregon, right, and over Washington, like these were happening. So like if you think about what Utah's been able to accomplish, they've been good. Like they've been able to succeed with Kyle Whittingham. And again, I think with worse rosters than what he has now. I don't think that they've had the kind of talent that he's going to be working with at Michigan. So again, like all conversations about Michigan, it has to start with the fact that you hit pretty much a grand slam given the way that your program was left in the dump because of your previous head coach, not just from an embarrassment standpoint, from a logistical standpoint, being able to keep a roster together and have any form of talent still there. Congratulations, you've hit a grand slam getting Kyle Whittingham. I think the problem right now, and this will be my through line as I get really annoying over the offseason, is that the Big Ten is just by and large the best conference in college football. I think they're running away with it, and there's so much elite talent at the top of this conference right now. And so I think it's unrealistic to say, can Michigan win it in year one, right? Because you're having to compete with Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, who will, I think, automatically pencil in as contenders, locks for the playoff and everything else. Oh yeah, by the way, you play all three of those teams and two of those teams on the road. So you're already fighting an uphill battle, even if you're better than everybody. Like, even if you automatically are better than Penn State and Iowa and all those other teams that you have that are, kind of in that tier of, being able to compete. Maybe we don't consider them a favorite, but they're right there competing for it. Even if you're better than them automatically, it still doesn't matter, because you're still having to fight your way to be either number one or number two with Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, right? Those are three very, very good football teams who are farther along in their programs, farther along with their development. It's just where they are right now. Unfortunately, that's kind of where you are. Now, if you compete, you get Indiana at home. You have, you've pulled it off in the shoe for a couple of times in a row now. Look, I think if you're Michigan, it's not unrealistic to say that a good season, a good quarterback in Underwood, and he's going to be good. Like, I watched the tape. He's got the skill. He's got the tools. He needs an offensive system that can actually highlight those skills. And so if they can put that around him, if they can actually play pretty well, it wouldn't shock me if they snuck into the playoff at 10-2 with the resume they would have, right? If they can find a way to play that kind of style. You're saying that you beat, I think it's Oklahoma earlier in the year on the schedule for them. Plus, teams like Iowa, Penn State, you would have beaten one of Indiana, Oregon, or Ohio State, taking care of teams like UCLA, Rutgers, Michigan State along the way. Like, these are quality wins that you could put a good resume around. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that they're going to go 10-2. That's not a prediction. Again, this is April, so we're not going to make that prediction quite yet. But I think if Underwood takes those leaps, he's talented enough. They finally have some talent around. I mean, how long have we been saying, well, what if Michigan just had a good wide receiver? They've got a few now. I think they've got a couple of wide receivers you can make a legitimate case that, hey, those are some dogs that can actually play. And you're right about the running back room being a little thinner, Mitch. I don't think that's the style Kyle Whittingham will play, but I could be wrong. I think he's going to let this be a little bit more of a balanced offensive attack like he's had in the past. And I don't think it'll be quite as workman as it's been in the past with the Harbaugh just grinded out in the Big Ten style. So, look, I think that this could be a good year for Michigan. There's a lot of ways it could go wrong. It's not deep enough yet. I don't think that they have a deep enough roster. I don't think that they have the absolute top-end elite talent to compete at the top of the conference. But this is a good Michigan team who will play well this fall. I just can't be convinced otherwise. And if anyone wants to put Grandpa Kyle out to pasture, that's fine. But I'm not doing it to Grandpa Kyle. Okay, I've watched that man coach football. He's forgotten more about football than all of us will ever learn about it, right? That's Grandpa Kyle out there. So I'm not doing it to him. Come on, get your Bruce Bochy. Let's make a comparison there. Go get your title.
Well, yes. Circling back, the original question was that statement was that Kyle Whittingham will make the Big Ten title game in year one. I think we've all said no, but there are the cases for at least why Michigan could play well, be a dangerous team. So Michigan fans, there you go. There's your dose of optimism here on April 13th. Final question for you guys, and we can popcorn this one back and forth. I would like to go out to the newly reformed Pac-12. We talked about this on the Group of 5 or Group of 6 show, I should say. Herd Bros gave a definitive statement that Boise State was going to dominate the Pac-12. So, fact or fiction, Boise State's Pac-12 reign starts right now, here in year one.
I think it's a fact. I think that, first of all, this is maybe the most interesting conference in the whole G5 now, right?
Absolutely.
Or G6, whatever we're calling it these days. I'm really excited about it. I think that Boise has the most infrastructure from a roster standpoint and from a just program support and stability standpoint, has the most likely team to just hit the ground running, right? There's a couple other contenders, I would say. Obviously, you got the two Pac-2 teams in Oregon State and Washington State. They've gone through so much turmoil over the last couple of years, though, from roster upheaval and coach coaching changes that I think that it's hard to be really all in on betting on them to hit the ground running. Then you got like San Diego State, Texas State is very interesting to me in this whole new context that they're playing in and traveling time zones and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting, but Boise certainly has the infrastructure. Obviously, Maddox Madsen is a big part of that. I think that he continues to develop and look really good. But I'm looking at the running backs, man. We all thought that Sire Gaines would be the Genty replacement last year, but Dylan Riley was an absolute workhorse by the end of the season last year. Both of those guys are back. I think it's going to be another really good season in Boise.
I know it's not Boise State, but you know, what the heck is a polar bear doing in insert geographical location here? That's what it feels like Texas State being in the Pac-12. And I know we've got much more egregious examples, right? But Texas State being in the Conference of Champions in the Pac-12, just, I don't know.
I love it, man. I'm so excited for them. I'm excited for the Bobcats on the baseball diamond more than anything. I think that they have a chance to run that league in baseball. Basketball is going to be a little tough. I'm not sure that they're really ready from an infrastructure standpoint to compete with Gonzaga, but I'm excited for them in football and baseball.
You mentioned Madsen's back at quarterback. One last trip on the blue turf for him. You know, but when I think of a dynasty, a reign starting in year one, as this question implies, they've got talent behind him too. They're grooming a couple of young quarterbacks behind Madsen, and so you know they're obviously these quote unquote smaller schools are going to have to be the antithesis more than likely of a Miami, of an Indiana, where it's, hey, who's the next hot shot that's coming in out of the portal? But you talk about a team that, Trey used the word infrastructure, I think not only from just an athletic department standpoint, but from a stability standpoint within the football program, right? You can slap a new logo on the chest, but Boise State football knows how to win, right? They know who they are. And that may be the most important thing this year as the conference tries to kind of re-identify itself. And you mentioned Wazoo and Oregon State are kind of trying to have to pick up the pieces multiple times over these last couple of years. But I do like the stability and the vision I think that the Broncos have had. The defense looks deep thanks to the portal as well. I think they're going to be probably top 2 or 3 when it comes to defensive metrics in the conference. So, you know, it's hard to fake that continuity, that experience heading into the Pac-12, and Boise State doesn't even have to pretend. They can just say, hey, we've been there, done that.
Yeah, I think in today's college football, experience at the quarterback position matters, right? Consistency within your system. I made that case earlier for, Gunner at Georgia. I'll make it again for Maddox here at Boise State. I think that's, experience in the system, knowing what you're doing has to matter, especially when, in this, kind of new, Pac conference we got out here. I just don't know if there's another team I trust right now to win as much as I trust Boise State. Once upon a time, right, we would have said, oh, well, there's a team making a jump up in conference difficulty. They're probably going to struggle a little bit. But 2 things. Number one, I'm not even entirely sure that they're actually jumping up in terms of conference difficulty, considering a lot of this new Pac is just old Mountain West Conference. In addition to that, we've seen it happen, right? James Madison, SMU, among others. There have been teams that have made that jump to a new conference and have shown up and dominated. I don't see any reason why that can't be Boise State this year.
It's exciting for the Broncos. I feel like G5, G6, whatever delineation we're going to make with the Pac-12. I think there's a lot that they've got to prove as a conference, but Boise State has a chance to lead from the front, and not only do it in football, but a couple other sports as well. I'm really, really happy for all these teams that have jumped on board. It's, kind of an island of misfit toys. At least that's what it seems like right now, but certainly excited about the quality of football, hopefully, that we get to watch. That after the bye week, after October 17th, it's not an easy schedule for Boise State. At Wazoo, Texas State, at Colorado State, Oregon State, San Diego State, at Utah State, right? I mean, these are all teams that, yes, have been a step down from what Boise State has been able to procure. But we also saw Boise State wasn't bulletproof early on in last year. It was incredible to see how they rallied and ended up winning another Mountain West title on their way out the door. But I think this is going to be well worth paying attention to as the leaves turn colors and the temperatures drop.
It's an interesting non-conference schedule too, right? They go to Oregon. They have a trip to Western Michigan, and man, you don't
Kalamazoo.
just walk into Kalamazoo and beat the defending MAC champions. But
that's right.
Yeah, this league, man, is going to be really fun. I think you don't look at them, and obviously it's not the depth of like a power conference from a brand standpoint, but each and every one of these schools, if they get serious, can drum up the money and the support to be a real player at this level and be a playoff contender. So I'm really excited to see it all play out. And we get Pac-12 After Dark back. So that's worth celebrating in and of itself.
Oh, Friday night, Saturday night, little Pac-12 After Dark. Give that to me. Utah State is the opponent that's on the schedule twice, by the way, the little home and home as a part of the Pac-12 round robin. They host the Aggies October 3rd. They will go to Logan to conclude the season on November 28th. That'll do it for our Fact or Fiction episode here, April 13th. Let me know if you guys want to see more of these. I think those were a couple interesting questions, some good debates, some, listen, I feel like there's not a lot of other podcasts diving as deep into some of the programs is what we're trying to do here, all in preparation for, we've got 2 more teams to add to the mix, 2 more previews to write, 2 more videos to record, but it's okay. We're going to do it together, and I'm really excited for you guys to get a peek behind the curtain of what we're doing. Lots more to come on the show for sure. So for Trey Reeves, Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, so long, everybody.